Hey everyone, I'm Crystal Jigrup, and this is Empowered by Women. In August of 2021, I launched Book of Bijou, which is a line of chic and innovative jewelry storage. And in January of 2022, we expanded into what you now see as the Empowered by Women platform. I really wanted to create a centralized space where we can really put emphasis on our mission of women empowerment and community over competition. It really truly does fill my cup to be surrounded by so many of you inspiring women, and the energy that you bring to me and our platform on a daily basis is unmatched. You really all do fuel me with so much motivation to continue doing what I'm doing, and for that, I thank you. Before we jump into the episode, please be sure to follow or subscribe to us wherever you are listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. And also don't forget to share your favorite episodes with your fellow female founders so that we can continue growing our platform and furthering our mission. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this next interview with another incredible woman in entrepreneurship that I know you guys are going to absolutely love. Today, we have one of our fabulous members joining us. Jess Snyder is the founder of Intimate Mama, and she is a women's personal growth and transformation coach. With her experience as a labor and delivery nurse, Jess developed a burning passion for holistic women's wellness, where she's been working her magic for the last decade with a large range of beautiful offerings. Her multi-passionate feminine embodiment work stretches from personal growth, embracing our authentic expressions, cycle alignment for women, which we're definitely going to be diving into, and entrepreneurs to learn how to optimize productivity and when to slow down. So important. We're also going to go into intuition-guided and intervention-educated birth coaching for women to safely advocate for themselves and deeply trust their bodies, and other potent offerings from fertility support all the way through navigating complexities of motherhood. Jess loves curating programs for her clients to perfectly fit their unique needs and goals. She is a certified life and wellness coach, a registered nurse, an NLP practitioner, a certified yoga instructor, an intuitive energy worker, a retreat holder, a plant medicine facilitator, and an overall amazing human. She creates a safe and sacred spaces that allow for deep healing and lasting transformation. So if you got anything from that bio, know this is going to be an amazing conversation. But Jess, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. I always love chatting with you. So I know I just gave off your beautiful bio, but tell us more about who you are and how that led you to all of the beautiful things that you're doing today.
I am all the things. And I think one of the biggest things that I have come to terms with is that the more that I label, the more I feel like I'm in a box. And so I almost like to just do like no labels and allow myself to expand in whatever feels good to me. And I love helping other women and entrepreneurs do the same, and finding like what structures have you created for yourself and how are they holding you back, and where can we almost like break down the walls and just like be you however you want to be you. And as a manifesting generator, I have so many passions and ways of doing things that this just works for me.
I love that idea of taking off the label. I think that was a conversation that I have dove into recently. I almost said dove into recently, where it's like, because we're so multifaceted, sometimes we have difficulty like putting a name to what it is that we do, but it's because we do so much. Like we don't need to have that name, that you can be all the things. So I love that you mentioned it. But go ahead. I think you were about to say something else.
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up, but as a holistic practitioner myself and having worked in the medical field, I just found this big gap in the way that we care for women and the way that we operate as women. And I just began to fill that with my work in coaching.
Beautiful. I love that. So Intimate Mama, when did that get started?
Well, officially it started in 2022, but I had been coaching for years prior.
And then what made this transition over to structuring it as this new Intimate Mama brand?
After going through the whole fertility through pregnancy, birth, and motherhood journey myself, I just really realized those gaps because I lived it and recognized how I can help support women differently. And then working with women, my work has just expanded so much. And I have just been coaching in so many different ways. And that's why I love curating programs for women. And women will just email me and be like, hey, this is what I want. I see you offer this, 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 and this. Can we combine it? And I'm like, yes, here it is. And we create a program for them to meet their needs, because I don't believe in a one size fits all, and we're not all the same. And so you can't have one program that's going to meet everybody and their needs. So yeah, I love curating the programs. It's so much fun.
I want to speak to, so you are a labor and delivery nurse. I'm assuming for longer than you've been a mom. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to us about like that, like your perspective. Did it change completely after you went through it yourself and you're like, holy moly, like as much as I'm sure you're an incredible nurse, is that when you realized, wow, there's so many things lacking that I wish I could have received during my
100%.
own experience?
Yeah.
What was it like?
So much that shifted in the way that I viewed the care, by experiencing it for myself twice, now going on a third time here upcoming. And then just the growth that you experience through motherhood, it really is like such an initiation into this like transformative portal. And my oldest is 3, so haven't been in it that long, but 3 years, I feel like I've just shifted so much, and I was already before our first more holistic. And in the last 3 years, I feel like I've really taken on so much of just the natural methods that I'm noticing that gap like widening in my vision of how obstetrics is the science of the medicine of birth, and how they're taught medicine in school. And so they only know how to treat with medicine. And what about all the people that don't need medicine? What about just the regular births that choose to deliver in a safe space in a hospital setting, that don't want to have all the interventions? And how can we educate them and help them advocate for an unmedicated intervention birth if they so choose, but have the options available to them, again, if they so choose, without having it be on like a pressured timeline? Because I believe that birth is a natural, intuitive, and instinctual physiological process that our bodies are designed to go through. And it takes time, especially the first time around. And I just see how we push labor with medicine so often that it's almost like we have to just speak up for ourselves. And how do we learn to speak up for ourselves? You have to learn about labor and how to support labor and do all the things, know what the options are. And then you have this like full, well-rounded background to be able to have the benefits and risks of everything and choose what's best for you, versus just putting your whole trust into a team.
I love that. Kind of really opening the book to all of the different options that truly are available to everyone that enters the hospital or wherever they're giving birth, aside from like what's just taught to the doctors and the nurses to, like say to you, right? There's so many other different holistic ways to go about it. Me personally, I'm definitely like, give me all the meds. I need it. I'm very low tolerance for pain, so I need it. But there are so many women that are out there looking for those kinds of resources, right? To be able to lean into. So I love that you offer that. What is it like now that I want to get into the business side of things, because I'm curious what it looks like in terms of like, how do you find all of your clients? Has that been kind of a difficult journey for you to navigate in terms of like, okay, I'm a nurse, but now I want to offer all these other things on the side? What did that look like in terms of building your business and starting to accumulate all the clients you have today?
You know what? It's funny that you asked that. I think a lot of my first clients were previous patients that I have kept in contact with, and that was part of the inspiration behind the work that I started, because I started with birth coaching and then expanded just to all women from fertility to motherhood and even pre-fertility, right? Like if you're not even thinking, I mean, fertility is always, but if you're not even thinking about having kids and there's just growth that you want to work on. So just women, I love working with women through all the phases and stages of life, but it did primarily start with birth coaching. And so some of the patients that I had, and I provided all this education to and gave them like all of the options in their labor room. They were like, where did you come from? And like, how did we not have this? I would have loved to have had this prior so I could have prepared and had all of this knowledge. I wish that this existed in a birth class. Like the birth class did not prepare me. And I heard that time and time again. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm hearing this. I get it. I'm providing it. How can I help more women and reach more women? And so that's kind of how Intimate Mama began. And so some of my first clients were previous patients that I created strong bonds with and kept in touch with after. And then since then, it's just grown. I feel like you get to meet people and become parts of different women communities. And I hosted a retreat and host local events and go to different like networking spaces. And then you just create bonds with people and they're like, hey, I like you. I like your energy. I want to work with you. And I say, yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
I love that. You spoke to something that has been a big topic for me these past couple of weeks, and it's really about how to get visible. And aside from what people are usually throwing small business owners of like, what's your Instagram strategy, right? Like, are you posting every single day? Aside from that, you're doing all these other beautiful things. And you said that you're a part of different women's communities and you're going to all these networking groups. So for people out there that might be coaches, whatever industry they're in, or are just looking to get more visibility and start connecting with more women, like what are your suggestions for them?
Something that I have really shifted in the last couple of years is just viewing everything as an energetic exchange. And so your intention behind what you're doing, where you're going, and why really matters and people feel it. So if your intention is like, hey, I want to make money, I'm going to go here and I want to try to meet people to sell to them, your energy is not going to come off the way that you want it to, and they're not going to receive it the way that you want to. And so if your energy is more of like, hey, I love helping people, I love connecting with people, I want to go and meet people, and if I can learn from them or they can learn from me, great, cool. And if financial abundance comes with that, I am more than open to it. And there's like a different intentionality and a different energy that you hold when you come into a space with authenticity. And people feel that. And so they want to work with you versus when you just start kind of pitching your business, people are like, okay, I feel like I'm being sold to. And that energy is so much different. And so even like you said on social media, like am I making this post to reach, all these people and make it go viral, or like what is my intention behind this post? Why am I sharing this? Am I trying to connect with people? Am I trying to share an offering I have? And what is the energy behind that? And so my advice would be to just almost like reassess. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but what's the energy behind what you're doing? And then just being open to different opportunities and meeting people. And it doesn't mean that you always have to feel social, right? That goes back into cycle alignment for women entrepreneurs. But just having the groundedness in yourself and knowing who you are and then just exuding that, I feel like brings people in and opportunities in. You call it and you manifest it.
Okay, I know you're all well invested into this episode so far, but I wanted to just take a quick moment to tell you all about Cast Magic because this tool has been a lifesaver for me and the Empowered by Women podcast. And we don't like to gatekeep around here, okay? So if you also have a podcast, a YouTube channel, or really produce any kind of long form content, you really need to introduce Cast Magic into your life if you haven't already. It used to take me forever to find specific clips, create captions and titles and descriptions, and all the things that come with running a podcast, but Cast Magic has made that 10 times easier for me. And as a mom with a very busy schedule, I am all about simplifying and streamlining my to-do list. So seriously, save yourself some time and even multiply your usable content and download it ASAP. The link will be included in the show notes, but let's go ahead and get back to this awesome interview.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very much a person that is like drawn to the energy of other people, and that's how I choose like who I'm collaborating with, and all the work that we've done like has been a very big like where is the energy like drawing me to. One of the things that I feel like, I think there's like this underlying like lack of confidence when it comes to how people are showing up, right? So they feel like because they're not quite sure how to show up, or maybe they're not used to showing up in a very authentic way, and they might feel like what they have to offer doesn't quite meet, you know, where they envision themselves, right? So they feel like they have to present themselves in like this polished professional way that all the, you know, gurus are telling them to, and that's where the energy starts lacking. So in regards to that, like, how do you think they can tap into starting to show up authentically and starting to really move past the imposter syndrome that comes with being a business owner and having to put yourself out there?
I love that question. This is something that I really had to work toward when I first started my business. And I remember my husband, who went to school for business. He works as a fireman now, but he went to business school. And so he has this background. And he said, like, well, why don't you do some like market research and see what everyone else is doing that, you know, offers birth coaching or women's coaching, and like, how do they do it? Or if you're going to host a retreat, like, how do other people host retreats? And so I started, and I found myself like no longer inspired. I didn't feel good about myself. I like saw what everyone else was doing. I was like, well, it's already being done. And I like didn't feel good about myself. And I took a pause. I was like, okay, like this doesn't feel good. I don't like this. I almost don't want to continue with this business. And as I paused, I felt this like nudge of like, no, you can't stop. Like, this is what you're meant to do. And then I didn't do any more market research, and I didn't look at anything else. And I was like, okay, how does it feel good to me? If I want to start this business, how does it feel good to me to create this business? And so I just started doing it, and it came very naturally because it was authentic, right? I wasn't trying to be anyone else or do it the way anyone else does it. And that didn't work for me. And so I had to go through this process of finding who am I authentically. And it's scary to show up as you, right? Like there's all these judgments, and it goes back to that like box that we're put in, and the fears and the experiences that we've had in life, and the obstacles and traumas and experiences that have made us feel a certain way when we show up authentically. And breaking that down, like remembering like, okay, well, I was bullied for this once upon a time. And do I still feel that that's serving me, holding on to this fear? And like working through all of that, working through the traumas and letting all of those go so that you can feel more embodied in yourself. And then work like the way that you exude that and embody your own authenticity is so important, because you are the only you out there. Like there's nobody else like you. And so nobody else has the offerings and the ability to do what you do. And people are going to choose to work with you because it's you, not because of exactly what you offer or exactly how you do things. They're going to meet you. They're going to feel your energy. They're going to feel your authenticity. They're going to like exactly who you are, and they're going to want to work with you. But if you're not showing up exactly who you are, they don't know who you are. They don't really get it, because they're getting the energy of like, she doesn't really know who she is. She's trying to do this and she's trying to do that. And it doesn't come off authentically. And people do feel that whether they're aware of it or not. And so showing up authentically is your sales pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like being you is the best thing that you can do for anyone. The clients that are going to be your dream clients are going to be drawn to you by being you.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like, you know, you could say all the right things, but depending on how you're actually saying it, and if you have that like passion that is going to shine through like crazy, if you're coming from this very authentic place, like that is what's going to really top it off, right? You can say all the right things, but if the energy is not there, then they'll be like, okay, well, that was probably just like some pre-recorded pitch that you don't actually believe in. So I couldn't agree with that more. I'm curious because you mentioned earlier that you like to curate different programs for people. And the first thing that came to mind was like, oh my gosh, that must be a lot of work. But for us women who like to do all of the things and have a hard time, like kind of like paring it down and just having the one offer, or the two offers, and that want to be able to bring all of these different elements into it. Two questions. How do you make that into a sustainable practice? And then also, how do you keep it from how do you continue to communicate what you're offering in a way that it's clear to everyone that you're able to offer all of these different things?
Mm-hmm. I think that curating the programs is easy for me because I don't know if you know anything about human design, but manifesting generators like do it all and they don't hop like in a linear like A to Z, like what makes sense to other people. They can go like all over the place and it makes sense to them. And then the way that they express it makes sense to others, even though they have no idea how you got there. And so the way that I curate the programs all has the same basic coaching strategies and the way that I help women work through the processes that they're working through, whether it be fertility and they need to learn the things that are going to be the most sustainable to create a good environment in their bodies and to create a good home for a baby, and working through similar traumas or things that are preventing their bodies from feeling safe is the same way that you would make somebody understand how their authentic selves feel safe in their bodies. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So something that really came to me when I hosted my first retreat over the summer is that all the women were like, how is this your first retreat? Like you're doing everything so effortlessly and like you've never led this before, but it feels like you've done this so many times. And what I recognized was that the work that I do at a patient's bedside and the way that I hold space for women in general and the way that I guide women is the same way I do it in every space that I come into, even if it's a different environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that I hold space for women in a retreat and the way that I hold space for women through coaching calls and the same way I hold space for women in birth is my own natural energy of the way that I love to hold space for women. And that really is just something that I love to do. And so it's not so much of like doing so many different things. It's really doing the same thing, but in different settings. And so to your point of like, how do you come across to explain what the different offerings you have is, I would say that was hard for me in the beginning of like, okay, I do have so many passions. Are people going to get that I do, birth coaching and I can help them get pregnant and I can help them through their motherhood challenges and just as women through personal growth, because it took a lot for me to get here. And I know the path that I took, and I hope that other women can take the path of least resistance. It was a lot of just explaining that, right? Like, I'm here to hold space for you and I have so much to offer. And if you come to me and you say, hey, I want this, I'm also not afraid to say, you know what? I don't know that fully aligns with the offering that I have. And I can help through networking, guide them to a space or a person that does have that ability and does have those strengths. Because I don't want to take on every single client. We're not a good fit for each other. And I don't want to waste anybody else's energy or money. And so it is being clear in the way that you have your offerings and how you can help other women do the same.
It sounds like you do a lot of discovery calls. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that, now I'm not a coach, but I think that is kind of a beautiful way to navigate around kind of like getting over like the copy, right? Or like the things that are like physically present on the digital space, right? If you don't feel like that is your strength, just knowing that you have that strength in terms of like verbally communicating it with someone, for everyone that's listening, like that can be the avenue that you choose to start getting your clients in, right? You don't have to have the fancy website all the time and like all of these amazing things happening on social. It's really just like, well, let's hop on a call. Let me see how I can help you.
Exactly. And then they can, through that call, feel your energy, your authenticity, understand if they want to work with you. And then they're like, I don't even care what you offer. I like you as a person. Let's do it.
Exactly. That's amazing. So you kind of like indirectly have spoken to kind of listening to your intuition in terms of how you operate through your business. So what does that mean for someone? Like I'm assuming you guide other women, your clients, to lean into their intuition as well, whether it's for motherhood or for entrepreneurship. So what kind of guidance do you give them?
Well, from the very basics, you have to listen to your intuition. What is your intuition? It's that small inner knowing. It's that little voice that we hear that we don't always listen to, right? Like it's the small voice that even says like, don't forget to grab a jacket. And you're like, oh, I'll be fine. And then you end up being cold. You're like, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah.
The more that you don't listen to it, the more you realize that it's always right. And so it's just allowing that guidance and taking the offering. And so the same way I explained that I felt that little nudge when my husband was telling me to try the to look at, what else was in the market. And I was like, I'm just going to pause. Like, I don't know if I want to do this business. And I felt that nudge, and that nudge is your intuition. It's like a push. And sometimes it's more subtle, and sometimes it's a little bit more drastic. Like, no, you have to do this. And so once you begin to listen to that voice, it just naturally starts to come up for you, and it gets louder. And so when you ask yourself, is now the best time to start a podcast? Your ego, like that louder voice, is going to be like, yes, that's going to be your moneymaker. Now's the time. The inner voice is either going to say yes or no too, right? Like it's like, yes, I feel this in my heart that this is exactly what I meant to do right now. Or like, no, right now is not the best time. Like we have a lot going on. A podcast is not something that's going to work right now. And so it doesn't matter what it is in your business or what decisions you're making, or how you're creating a program or the product that you're doing. But it's all that like the same authenticity come from your heart, your intuition. Is it coming from a space that has that genuine energy? And I think that it all ties in together. And so listening to your intuition, what feels good to you, even if it's different than how somebody else does it,
Mhm.
is your power. Like your intuition is your guide. And if you're not listening to your guide, then you're going off the beaten path. And sometimes that takes you in a great way. For us, it's gotten us lost. And so it's just kind of tuning in to the path.
You spoke to something earlier about how you were, doing your market research. And I think there's definitely something to say about overconsumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we spend too much time researching everyone else and not taking enough time to actually like sitting back and reflecting, like, okay, like what are we feeling? What is our body telling us? What direction do we want to go? That can lead us to not taking any action at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you're really kind of shining this example of, it's okay to not do things the way that everyone else is doing it. And I think it's even better that way, honestly. I feel like that's what makes things fun and exciting, right? Obviously, we should definitely not always be like stuck in this mode of wanting to reinvent the wheel. There are so many people who have done things before us, and that will really help us collapse time and have this beautiful sustainable business. But to recognize that we have the flexibility to go in all of these different directions is such a powerful reminder.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I want to make sure that we cover, because I think it's a really interesting topic, is alignment with your feminine cycle. And this is something that I didn't even know was a thing until like recently. So tell us all about that. Like, what does that even mean?
Yes. It's one of my favorite containers to work within, and helping entrepreneurs figure out what works for them. But we've all heard of burnout. We all know how to work and grind and do the same thing every day and wake up and get right to it and, work all the way through the end of the day and do that same thing day in and day out. And as a mother, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner and woman, and having my own interests and passions and hobbies and friends and want to go on a vacation, like how people are like, how do you do it all? And the answer is simple. I don't do it all every day. right? Like it's not 100% doing all of those things every day. I'm not seeing all my friends and working here and doing that and taking on the calls and writing my emails every single day, right? You split it up throughout your calendar, and that is organization. Now, when you look at your cycle, there are periods of time for rest, like when you're menstruating, and periods of time of full energy when you're ovulating, and then lots of in between. And so when you learn about your cycle and you can start to navigate how you're going to feel and almost like predict how you're going to feel, then you know which weeks you're going to feel more social, which weeks to host events, which weeks to launch, and then which weeks are more for brainstorming and reorganization and getting prepared for the next cycle and taking slow down time to reflect on how did everything go. And when you're able to really harness that, your productivity skyrockets because now you're living in alignment with your own energy and you're not forcing yourself to do things that feel out of alignment for that day, right? Like if I'm on my menstrual cycle, my body's telling me to slow down and I'm low on energy, and I'm in that like slower, like winter rest phase, but I'm like, nope, today I'm hosting my big event. I have to gear up and get my clothes on and get out the door and do all this stuff, then you're really pushing yourself 10 times harder than you would have had you scheduled it on a day that your body is naturally going to feel that energy and excitement. And then you're going to show up for your clients in that excited and more powerful way because you're in your energy when you're ovulating or closer to ovulation. And so as I help women navigate their cycles and then looking at what they have on their calendars and putting it into the slots that would be most helpful for them, they're like, wow, this is game changing. Like I actually feel really good doing all these things because it feels good inside my body. And so that's the cycle portion. Then there's the lunar portion. And we know that as women, our cycles are so closely correlated to the moon cycles. And the energy level of the new moon versus the full moon is very similar to menstruation versus ovulation. And so when you're working in a collective environment of, hey, I want to launch, the launch isn't necessarily your biggest work. Like you've done all the previous work leading up to it. So it doesn't really matter what day you launch based on your cycle, but you want to catch people when they're in their most energy. And you don't know when every other woman is going to be cycling, but the full moon energy is full of energy and social light and people are out and about. And so you want to launch closer to full moon time or like the days leading up to when people are going to get really excited and want to buy things and do stuff. And so then you really are harnessing the energy of your clients and like the collective society. So it's kind of an art, and it's so fascinating to learn. And I will actually be hosting a November group container for cycle alignment, and I haven't announced it yet. So this is going to be it.
I love that. Amazing. When is that? November what?
Beginning of November, I think 1st, I think is a Friday. So we're going to be starting November 1st.
Okay, I think that's perfect timing because I think this is going to be live in October. So that will be the perfect way to kick it off. So everyone that's listening in, make sure you dive into that. I love that. When you were talking, it reminded me of the message that you sent me right after our summit about how it was a full moon.
Oh, yes.
And I've never done any of that kind of alignment work. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that message because that summit truly was full of so much incredible energy.
Cool.
And it was my first time meeting you. So I think it was so perfectly, I don't know, it was everything that it was meant to be. And I love that there's kind of those synchronicities there. For anyone that is terrible at tracking their cycle, are there like apps or anything?
Yeah. There's apps and there's also just a simple piece of paper. and just mark like whatever day of the week it is. And then you can just write how you're feeling and start with that. Like if you don't know when your cycle is going to come or when it's going to come, just start with how you feel. And then throughout this month, you would write how you feel. And it doesn't have to be this like long journal entry, but like 2 words, like slow, unmotivated, or
Is that
like
the beginning of the day feeling or end of the day feeling?
however you choose to do it. I would say beginning of the day is more, it depends, I guess, if you're a morning person, right?
Yeah.
But before you've had influence on your day.
Okay.
Right? Like before the day goes on, and like if at the end of the day you get into like a disagreement or something, well, then that's going to change your mood. So in the morning, how do you feel when you wake up? Like, are you excited and energized today, or are you feeling a little bit slower? And then do that every day, just a couple of words. And then when your cycle comes, just note, like, my period is here today. And then start your tracking then, because that's the beginning of your menstrual cycle, starting with menstruation. And then we'll dive into what the phases are and learning more about our cycle and things like that. But after a couple of months, you'll notice like, okay, well, on these days, I typically feel like this, but like on the days leading up to my period, I feel like this. And then as you learn your own cycle, then we apply how to align your business with your cycle. And then it all becomes this like magical calendar.
I love that it really like normalizes these periods of wanting rest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there have definitely been days for me where I'm like feeling like so lazy. And I guess those are your slow days, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so easy for us to kind of just blame ourselves, right? Like we're not committed enough. We're not dedicated to the work we're doing because we're choosing not to show up that day. But I love that this is kind of like giving other women the permission slip, like it's okay. You're supposed to be going through these seasons. You're supposed to be going through these ebbs and flows. And there's a way to take advantage of that to still maximize your productivity and to still be doing all the things that you need to do in your business, but in a way that makes sense with how your body operates.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you have this community of female entrepreneurs because it is still a massive minority. And so the examples that we have of what entrepreneurship looks like has stemmed from a masculine view. And the male cycle is a 24-hour cycle. So every day they start over. And so every day they can do the same thing every day. They can do the big intense workout every single day and show up the same way every single day because that's what their cycles look like. And we don't have that example of what does it look like to run a business as a woman who doesn't do the same thing every day, who doesn't wake up feeling the same way every day. Not that men don't have also emotions and feel different day to day, but their cycles are more related to the solar cycle. And so it reminds you that biologically we are different, and biologically we're going to run our businesses different to be able to match our energy levels.
That is so interesting. I'm gonna need to dive into this more because I've never even like taken that perspective of like the men's cycle versus the women's cycle. Like obviously I know that women have this cycle that we go through, but to see that comparison of like men can be the exact same every single day if they choose to. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean the 9 to 5 work day, the way that it's laid out in the man's cycle of like their testosterone levels and their hormone levels throughout the day lands exactly in that 9 to 5 way of like, well, at this time they are at peak levels for energy, and then as their energy level goes down, it's like happy hour time, right? And I mean, women have been in the workforce since like the 1800s, and somehow we're just getting around to understanding that women don't work on a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 cycle.
That's so fascinating. I am seriously going to have to dive into this more. But oh my gosh, Jess,
Well, on November 1st, I'll be seeing you there.
Yes, November 1st. Is this a virtual container?
It's a virtual container,
Okay,
yeah.
amazing. And then do you have an upcoming retreat or anything that you want to be sharing?
No, I am
Because
currently
you look baby.
pregnant, and
Yeah.
so I am giving myself permission to have a slow season through this winter and focus in on my body and working on the offerings that are feeling most exciting and inspiring and not doing absolutely everything. And so I hope you guys all give yourselves permission to do the same.
I love that. I love that. And another congratulations to you for
Thank
being
you.
number 3 on the way. Very exciting. Well, whenever you do have another retreat up and coming, we'll be sure to share that with our audience because I'm sure they would be itching to be a part of that. But super excited for your group container come November. And again, you have been incredible. So where can everyone find you and all the beautiful work that you're doing?
On social media, I'm at Intimate Mama, and my website is intimatemama.com.
Amazing. And of course, she's one of our fabulous members, so you can also find her on the directory. But Jess, like I said, you are incredible. I've always loved chatting with you anytime I do get to chat with you. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Another incredible interview with yet another inspiring woman in entrepreneurship. I hope you guys loved that episode just as much as I did. Before we leave off, if you yourself are also a woman entrepreneur, I would love for you to consider joining our Empowered by Women directory. We're looking for women-owned product and service-based businesses in the US to help us build the go-to place for our communities to find local women to shop with and connect with, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. All of the details can be found on www.empoweredbywomen.com/apply-directory. Of course, that's going to be linked in the show notes below, and you're also welcome to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. But other than that, thank you again so much for joining us, and I will see you in the next episode.